Kia ora and welcome back. So in this session, we are going to talk about continue from careers in tech. So we're going to talk about game and game industry. So the title of this session is Game of Mass Effect, an industry diverse in opportunity and impact. So we know that the world of video games, they are exciting and dynamic, and they're constantly pushing by boundaries around technology and storytelling. So with me today, we have a stellar panel of amazing women that they are founders and they are indeed game changers. So the first person sitting next to me on my left is Sophia Piven. Sophia, she's a lecturer and learning facilitator from Media Design School. Also, we have Maru Niho. Maru she's a managing director of Media Interactive. And also we have Sam Romlu, Managing Director from Methods. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we want to talk about everything game and game industry. And this session today afternoon is all about inspiring tech careers. And we usually heard about games, and the very first thing is, you're thinking about guys being, gamers. But now, sitting next to me, we have leaders, lecturers, founders of gaming studios here in New Zealand. So can you please start by telling me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and the work you're doing, and then we will dive into the questions. So shall we start from you, Sophia?
All right. So as you said, I'm a lecturer at Media Design School. I teach on game studies, which is very much about approaching games from a historical and social-cultural perspective. I think recently there's been a lot more attention paid to how games kind of reproduce a lot of pre-held political, social beliefs, and also how players enact those beliefs through gameplay. And so I teach very much about that, but also how games can be a medium for subverting some of those beliefs and cultural critique. My background's in anthropology, so naturally the approach is quite anthropological. Yep.
That's really great. So to you, Maru. So I know that you publish some Maori games to helping the next rangatahi how to manage depression. So some really meaningful games. So tell us a little bit more about it.
I got into the games industry, well, first of all, because I love playing games. And it was a curiosity about how they were made. Once I actually got into the industry and I realised that the gaming platform is more than just for entertainment, and it could be used as a really powerful platform for education, not necessarily just making educational games, but the medium lends itself well because it's immersive and it's interactive. I could see the potential there to, work on learning objectives that were not usually found in, the broad spectrum of games built for entertainment. So when the opportunity came up to work on games that could actually help people, especially the Sparks game around cognitive behavioural therapy, then it was a great opportunity to be able to take the game mechanics and gameplay aspects of why people like playing games and building something that was really important, like a learning objective, in Sparks' case, mild depression, for the platform. So it was a great way to sort of take in both aspects of development, both mental health and gaming, and combine them together.
Thank you. Fascinating. Thank you so much for that. Sam, to you, I know you're a founder of a few different studios. Tell us about them.
Yeah, which hat do I wear? So kia ora, and we started in the space, I started in the space in the creative tech sector essentially, which 20 years ago, revealing my age, was essentially just web-based, a lot of web-based content. So we started there with Method, and over the years, we've just done a lot of work in the creative tech space between games, AR, VR, experiential. A few years ago, we were lucky enough to get some funding from Sony and started up our now newly branded studio Mighty Eyes. We launched our VR time travel adventure game last year, and then early last year also then thought that I didn't have enough to do and set up another studio called Mad Carnival, which is a family-friendly entertainment studio. And it's something that we've been meaning to do for a very long time, especially seeing the lack of family-friendly entertainment in the space. And it was kind of really brought to light for me through COVID, spending time with my son on devices and trying to find games that we could play together that didn't involve shooting or violence and, didn't naturally come into games that might be attracted to kids. So with that, it's a very special focus on wanting to create beautiful, wholesome games that are fun. Yeah.
Really great. So that's really great to see all these changes over time, because there was a huge lack of seeing these type of games in that space. So I want to start from you, Mara. So I want to see, talking about changes, I want to see what type of changes did you observe in terms of both skill sets and expectation from industry in that field since you started your career?
Well, like Sam,
you
old,
don't need to rebel.
Yeah,
You're right.
I'm old. Been doing this for a long time, and I think a couple of the biggest changes are that the industry is slowly but surely becoming more diverse, and I think that's due to people like me and Sam, other women in the industry that that have shown that it is possible for us to not just make games but be leaders in gaming studios and be able to produce and release these games as well. So I think that the diversity in terms of more women in gaming is a big change that I've noticed since I started. It still has a long way to go. It's still a male-dominated industry, but the more that we get young people or young girls and, well, not just young, older women can come into the industry. I was a little bit older when I started Media. We just show that it's possible and it can be done. And also another change, apart from the technological change, is the type of games that are being made. So they're a bit more, as I said earlier, not just for entertainment, but also sort of spread right across the realm now into education and the different technologies like AR and VR that can be used for educational content as well.
That's fascinating. And you talk about there is nothing to stop them to join this field. So anyone who has a passion for it will be able to probably upskill, learn, and finding a path in that space. So I want to ask you a question, Sophia. So we are both from the tertiary academic environment. So what are those opportunities or pathway available out there for some of our viewers right now thinking about, I really want to go and explore this field. Where should I go? What do I need to do? So give us a little bit of information around that, please.
So yeah, I can talk from from the educational standpoint. And I think there's a lot of awareness now that there's a lot of resources on the internet, on YouTube. You can find tutorials from various creators. You can go on ArtStation, find a masterclass. Gumroad sells courses and so on. There's been cases where there are game developers who are self-made. I think the main example is Eric Barone, who made Stardew Valley. He's really kind of respected and touted as a hero by our game students. But I do think there are discrete advantages to taking a more kind of structured route, such as in a degree. And something that I have noticed is that degree programs that are focused on games are becoming more and more common. And there's definitely an advantage of taking that route, as you're given a very structured environment where you can work with people of differing expertise on multiple projects per year. And there's no greater motivation than the failure of failing your team members. But also when taking a more structured route, like a degree, I think you're more likely to find those meaningful connections.
True.
And I don't mean it in the sense of necessarily kind of networking and getting someone's business card. I know at drawing on my experience at MDS, we have a really strong relationship with studios. Our program directors really care about maintaining those relationships. We've had, for instance, Paul Richards, a concept artist, come in and openly kind of critique and discuss our students' work. And the team at Pickpock came in, did a panel for final year game production students, and it was very much on a kind of a personal human-to-human level. This is how you can improve. And so I think that you can absolutely take the less structured route, be self-taught. It's out there for you if you have the motivation. But there's also the more structured route where a lot of the time departments will put in a lot of care to creating this environment, very welcoming environment for people from all sorts of backgrounds. We have, like, you can get scholarships, and there's many initiatives. So I think there's many opportunities out there.
Brilliant. It's good to hear about some of the way that they can actually find their path to the game industry. But I want to start asking a question around a topic which is close to my heart. So diversity, and seeing you as role models in this field. So we're already sitting here, it's a diverse panel. And I think the reason that we started seeing, diverse type of games is a result of the people like us being part of it. But I think game industry overall, it is a reflection of diverse and inclusive communities, because it brings people as writer, artist, designer, storyteller, software developer, you name it. They have to come together to create that. But why is it important? So what is the impact of this inclusiveness and diversity within the game industry? So I want to hear from you, Sam. What do you think? So how can we really help to drive that? But at the same time, we want to know why it's important.
Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of why it's important, I feel like I'm probably stating the obvious in that we're all diverse people. We have diverse interests, diverse hobbies, and I think for a long time there's been games developed by a certain group of people, and it's kind of a self-perpetuating kind of cycle of that's who it's been created for, so that's who's going to play it, and then so suddenly it's like, well, that's who plays games, So I think what's been amazing is seeing the space open up and seeing people like Maru and, the rest of the amazing women and everyone around the world creating content that they want to play, that they want to be part of, that they want to see. This kind of experience that I had with my son is a time to kind of go, well, how can we change this? How can we change this for the better for certain things, but also so that more people can have more diverse opportunities. The reason I think a lot of kids, specifically talking about this, fall into playing games that are probably violent and that we don't necessarily want them to play is because there's no other options out there. So what we're saying is we're giving more options. It's like going into the supermarket and seeing, gosh, sorry, this is a really weird analogy, but one bottle of milk to suit everyone. When actually now, oh my God, I don't know how I've gone down this path, but there's all sorts now. And I guess that's the thing, is it's options. We're all so different, and I think I link it back to kind of what we have is there's an amazing talk done about the selfie view of the world, and the selfie view for a very long time, and still is, a middle-aged white man. And I guess that doesn't fit. Advertising and marketing was all about generalizations. How can we go to general public? We're now saying that actually everyone's so different. And so what this allows us to do is bring in games that suit those niches. Now, that seems a bit scary at times as well, because you're like, wait, hang on. We know this is popular. If I go down into this niche, is that going to be popular? But we're talking about a worldwide audience.
True.
Suddenly your niches aren't niches anymore. And what does that mean then? If we're changing the cycle, we create more of those sort of games. More people want to play them, so there's more need for them. And I think that's the thing, is just giving more options into that space. Having more people create that as well, the sort of people that we want, having amazing people from different backgrounds creating the content, so you're not always having the same point of view on things. And I think some of the best teams are those who, I'm constantly the person on our team on Wanderer going, hey, I think you've forgotten a whole group of people here, and what about a woman lead? And someone has to do that, and I can see how it doesn't happen from other people because it's from their point of view. They don't have the lived experience I have. So, and I guess that's the thing, is it's bringing your lived experience into that. And typically, there's no issues with bringing up some of those. It's more just someone hasn't considered it. Just like I haven't considered some, like a Māori point of view, because that's not necessarily my lived experience. So I just think that's just such an important thing, to have that voice at the table and to get it from the start.
Yeah, a lot of it is really around that, unconscious bias. You don't know what you don't know,
Exactly.
and you need to have that diversity at the table to be able to call out. So let's talk about trends and risks, because like any other, tech industry, game industry, I'm sure it is not safe with all of the things happening around, technology. So tell us a little bit about some of the latest trend and technology in the game industry. So I don't know if any of you want to answer this question. What are the latest, hottest thing in that? I know in AI, everyone's talking about ChatGPT, but what about games? So what is the latest things in a game?
I'll jump in a little bit and then
Go ahead.
You guys please jump in. But look, we've got a VR game in the market, and our whole thing around there was we wanted to be pioneers in the VR space. In general, PC gaming's been going on for so long. It's kind of hard to come out and be top of the space immediately. Whereas we saw a niche, and it was always something that we thought would be an amazing space. There's augmented reality gaming as well, which is only going to grow and grow. I think what happens a lot in the tech space and in games as well is something comes in. We saw NFTs in the last couple of years, AI, ChatGPT, etc. is our thing now, right? It comes in and it starts high. Everyone's like, let's jump on this bandwagon, and then because not the general public don't have that information, it drops. Everyone goes, oh, that wasn't great. VR went through the cycle where VR's dead, so, but it's actually here, it does that, and then it starts to grow again. So I think we'll see that more and more in the next few years is AR gaming, VR gaming. How does AI link into all of this? Because at the moment it's still in its experimental stages. So you're going to see some stuff ups, I guess, before actually we start to realise this is how we can use it. And my whole take on that is how can we use it to enhance what we're doing, not to replace what we're doing. But yeah.
No, a very valid point.
I think a trend that I'm seeing is not so much to do with the side of technology, but probably more in the storytelling realm of the tech, is that there is basically a call for authenticity in gaming. And of course the technology can be used to tell those stories in multiple ways, like with what Sam's doing, using VR and what others are doing using whatever new technology is coming out, like AI, etc. But I think, there's a hunger out there for authentic experiences, and those experiences come back to what we've been talking about with diversity, so that people or cultures or different groups are, out there that have had a minority voice can now use the technology to tell their own stories instead of their stories being told for them. So I think that's something that will get stronger as time goes on. I think the reason why that will get stronger is because everybody loves a good story, and how cool is it when that story is actually based on real lived experiences and or cultural experiences as well. So I think that's probably what we focus on, is having a high and emotional driven story, and whatever technology it ends up being on, if that's the strength of the, I guess, the core of the game itself, then people will attach, they'll like it. They'll either love it or they'll be like, that's not really for me, but the choice is there.
Awesome. So thank you so much for that. And I think back to your point, Sam, where AI can help, so with my hat with AI, so we might be able to see that digital humans would be able to replicate and being able to tell those stories to make those games more authentic and more genuine. So that might be opportunity and the power of AI. But looking at our time, so we only have 1 minute. And the 1 minute, I want to hear from each of you, please, one piece of advice for the young viewers right now. If they want to consider game as a next step for them, what's your advice? One suggestion, what advice? Go ahead.
Okay, one suggestion, if you're young, if you're kind of thinking of, you're kind of on the fence of going into games, maybe you're thinking of going into a degree, just start making games. As I mentioned before, there are so many resources out there, and you can really use that as a foundation. Post your games on platforms like itch.io, try to get it on Steam, try to get that feedback. And feedback is super crucial. Try to get people to play your games, get them to tell you how you can improve on them, whether their emotional experience of it matches up with your initial intention or expectations. So I think from me, it would be start making games, start making them early, and get as much feedback as you possibly can.
Great advice. To you, Mara.
I think that if you've already made that decision that it's what you want to do, you want to get into the game development industry, then ask yourself why. Keep that question there and use it as your motivation to move forward and to do your thing. Because, for me, when I started out, it was like, why am I doing this? Oh, I'm doing this because, or I want to do this because. And then keep yourself inspired. Look at other people who have been through that journey and have sort of gone through this path that you're about to go through, and use that as inspiration for you to keep going, because sometimes it can get tough, but when you break it down into little steps moving forward, it's a little bit easier. So stay inspired and stay motivated.
Inspired and motivated. Fantastic. To you, Sam.
Really quickly, tautoko all that. I would say also play lots of games, just figure out what's going on in those games, what you like about them, why you like them. And, for me, I'm not a developer. So how else can you add to this space? Is it as a writer, as a creative, what's your role going to be in this? So for me, it would be really hard to create a game and do that. But, what else can you do? Like, how can you get your ideas out there? How you might want to team up with someone who can do that. But I think playing games, and also the last thing I'd just say is that don't be scared of who else is in that room. Because I think for us, if we were to walk into a room with game developers, it would be a lot of people who don't look like us. And that can be really daunting and scary. And I would say there are people like us, and we need more people like us in here. And that can only happen with the next generation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Great discussion. I can imagine that we can sit and talk about this topic for hours and hours. Unfortunately, our time is over, but I hope our viewers find that engaging, informative. So thank you all. And please stay tuned. We will come back with the next session around internship. Thank you.